your iPad can become the ultimate productivity machine. I've done a ton of videos where I look at how this thing can integrate into your life. My personal belief is that in order to truly unlock the full power of your iPad, you do need some key accessories, and one of those things happens to be the Magic Keyboard. I have my iPad on my Magic Keyboard right now. In fact, it's actually helping me record and read my scripts. It is a vital part of my production process and actually is my primary personal computer. However, these accessories can be very cost prohibitive. So in today's video, we're going to ask the question, can you get the same level of performance to turn your iPad into that ultimate PC laptop replacement for a more affordable price? Well, comparing the Apple Magic Keyboard, we've actually got this little number from Temu. I believe this is literally called the product name Magic Wireless Keyboard Case. Pretty close to the real thing, am I right? So we're going to explore whether this thing, which costs $70, can replace something that costs nearly 600 Australian dollars. And do you know what? The answer actually isn't as straightforward as I thought. Okay, so first up is the Magic Keyboard, and Apple calls it magical for a reason. It's got that smooth scissor mechanism built into the keyboard, which makes the typing experience perfect. The keys are backlit, and it has a built-in trackpad that has that beautiful haptic feel as all other Apple products do, so it's incredibly premium. The floating design is stunning, and it makes your iPad feel legitimately like a laptop. But yes, it is expensive. That's actually the price of another iPad. Is that justifiable? Okay, so we have to turn this thing on here. 82 indicating the battery percentage. That's obviously very different to the Magic Keyboard already. We are going to need to go into settings, and I'm assuming iPad keyboard is this one. I should have read the instructions. Okay, so it's on, Bluetooth on. This should work. Okay, maybe I do need the instructions. I hate admitting defeat. Okay, it wasn't until I actually tried the Temu case that I ended up getting quite a lot of appreciation for the great work that Apple has done, putting all of that technology into something that is as small and as lightweight as that thing. I actually thought it was incredibly heavy when I first bought it, but compared to this thing, it's very light. This thing is not pretty. That is a very ugly hinge. When I first opened the box, that was the thing I saw the most. And if I'm honest, you look at Apple's comparison and it just, it is impressive of what they've done. Feature-wise though, it pretty much has everything. It is that full keyboard layout, although the function key requirement feels like a pretty big step back from the extra row that the latest Apple Magic Keyboard has got. But it's got that built-in trackpad. It's also magnetically attached, which again is perfect for the iPad, and USB-C. So it can be charged by whatever you've got lying around that's USB-C, which is pretty much every cable I own these days, thanks to the updates from Apple on their latest devices. Thank you. Actually, at first glance, it is pretty amazing when you feel the quality of the hinges, you feel the keys. This is actually a seventh of the price, a sixth of the price. A fifth of the price. I think it's a fifth of the price. All right, I'm going to leave the costs in the description. Someone with a better maths brain than me can do the maths on how much cheaper it is, but it's significantly cheaper. That was my point. Okay, so that is the look and feel, the initial impressions, the unboxing that everyone loves. Let's actually look at it compared to the assessment criteria to really see if it stacks up next to its much more expensive counterpart. Apple's Magic Keyboard is made from premium materials. The almost felt-like rubber substance looks great at first use. It is pretty fingerprint resistant, but kind of over time the edges fray. It does start to look a little less premium after a couple of years of use. The Temu keyboard isn't actually bad at all. The texture on initial inspection is remarkably similar, although it certainly slides more than Apple's. It does feel like it has a lot less friction. So when you've got something on a table like this, it does feel like it slides around a lot, which is very different compared to Apple's version, which does feel much more planted thanks to the friction that they built into this thing. In a side-by-side, you can instantly tell what was made initially for purpose using very clever engineers. The Temu model is incredibly thick with an iPad in it, and unlike Apple's streamlined design, this is a major travel consideration, as if I'm honest, if I'm going to put my iPad in there now, this is heavy. And if you've watched my recent travel video, the reason I use my iPad and Magic Keyboard is so that I don't have a laptop with me to try and keep the weight down in my travel bag. Also, just feeling this now, it feels like it shakes a bit too much. I don't like that. You can just feel what was made by engineers that understand all of those ergonomics versus some businesses that are just trying to get things out quickly. But of course, the most important thing when it comes to keyboards is the typing experience. That is what we buy it for. Apple's keyboard has a smooth, responsive feel. So the Temu one, this is the thing that actually really surprised me. It is an incredibly responsive feeling keyboard. I'm not gonna lie, I actually think I prefer typing on this than Apple's version. It's got a far more satisfying click. It is highly responsive, and it's got this kind of raised key build, which I think, again, is probably not deliberate. But the fact that they are more raised, therefore increasing the size, but they're just easier to type on and you don't miss keys, which I can find you doing if you're really going for it on Apple's. Although the lack of function row key is a bit disappointing, you have to remind yourself it is somewhere between a fifth and a seventh of the cost. But this is where it really starts to show what was made for purpose. The trackpad on Apple's product is flawless. It is responsive with multi-touch gestures. The Temu trackpad works, but the latency is terrible. The input lag when trying to move across the screen, and worse, if you're plugging it into an external display, becomes quite annoying. Delicate tasks, particularly video editing, become pretty difficult. Feature-wise, they're very, very similar. Apple's includes that USB-C pass-through port. The Temu keyboard, yes, it has that, but there is a big issue when it comes to battery life. The battery life on this thing is average at best. It died a couple of times through pretty intense working sessions, which is not ideal. It's something I'd never actually considered before with the Magic Keyboard from Apple, because this thing is powered by the iPad itself, and actually all it's doing is acting as a conduit to charge the iPad when plugged in, something you don't get when you're using this device. So if you're doing long sessions working on an external monitor, yes, you can use the USB integration to plug into one, but you will need to charge at the same time, which means that you are going to have to buy additional adapters to start using that ecosystem more effectively. Whereas the dual setup, the multi-purpose setup within Apple's Magic Keyboard is much more effective. Oh, and on this thing, there is actually a trackpad locking feature, which, yeah, I've yet to find a use for. But you can do that, and that's an extra feature. So the question, is the $500 keyboard worth it? Honestly, if you're a power user like me, like I really put my iPad through its paces. It's got the M4 chip. I need it for all of my video editing. I need it as my entire laptop replacement experience. If you want to do that with your iPad, do not spend $70. Spend the money. Get something that is built and designed to make your iPad as powerful as it can be. But if you just want the occasional typing experience with your iPad, if you just want to use it for mostly entertainment purposes and then pop it on something as a stand just to type some things out, if you want to write an email or whatever, browse the web, this thing is absolutely fine. So are you team budget keyboard, or are you going to be paying the premium? Let me know in the comments. I really want to know your experience with an alternative. Recommend some alternatives for the community here. See you in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.